Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. We've got some fascinating research lined up for today, all about trust in business relationships.
Oh, yeah, this should be good.
Yeah, we're going to be trying to figure out which type of trust is more important. Is it trust in a company's competence, like their
Mhm.
skills and their reliability,
Right.
or is it more about integrity, so like honesty and their values?
Mm,
And get this, the research suggests that one of these is actually 10 times more powerful when it comes to saving money and headaches down the line.
10 times.
So we're
Wow.
going to try to unpack all that for you today. And trust me, you're going to want to know this. To help us out, we've got, well, you already know him, but just to remind everyone, an expert on all this
Hi, everyone.
with a real knack for understanding this whole world of interorganizational relationships.
Uh-uh. Okay, so let's just jump right in. Which matters more for a really strong business partnership?
Yeah.
A partner's ability to just get the job done or their honesty?
One of the articles that you sent over had this scenario that I think really sums this up nicely.
Yeah.
Imagine you're trying to find a partner, right? You've got two choices.
Okay.
Company A,
Yeah.
total powerhouse. They've got this amazing track record hitting deadlines and staying under budget.
Sounds good so far.
But, and this is a big but, there are all these whispers about their ethics.
Uh-oh.
Maybe they cut corners, or their leadership isn't really known for being straight with their partners.
Okay, I see.
Then you've got Company B, complete opposite. Their leadership team is known for being totally upfront and honest. Their values seem solid, but they're kind of the new kid on the block. They haven't really proven themselves on a big project yet.
Interesting.
So who would you go with? The reliable, but maybe a little shady Company A? Or the untested but ethical Company B?
Well, the research actually points to a pretty clear winner here.
Oh, really?
Integrity-based trust. So the trust in a company's honesty and that they share your values, that's actually far more valuable than just trusting their competence. And that's because of how we judge competence versus integrity.
Okay. I think I see where you're going with this,
Mhm.
but can you explain it a bit more?
Yeah, so let's just think about it for a second. Let's say a company that you've always thought was really reliable, they miss a deadline. Do you automatically label them as totally incompetent?
No, not at all. Everyone can have a bad day.
Right, exactly. One mistake doesn't erase their entire track record, right?
Yeah.
But if that same partner does something dishonest,
Mm.
even something small, it just makes you question everything.
Yeah, it really makes you rethink that relationship.
Exactly. And it's much harder for them to win back that trust, even if they are super skilled.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's just so much harder to trust someone again after they've been dishonest, even if they were the best at what they did. Okay, so integrity clearly has a bigger impact. But how does this all actually play out in a business deal? I mean, does it actually affect the bottom line?
Oh, it absolutely does. When we talk about trust in business, we have to think about all the costs involved.
Costs.
Yeah, so there's ex ante costs, which are costs that happen before you sign an agreement, things like negotiating contracts and lawyer fees.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have your ex post costs, which are like the ongoing costs of actually managing that relationship.
So ex ante is like getting everything set up, and ex post is like keeping that partnership going.
Exactly. And that's where it gets interesting. Both competence-based trust and integrity-based trust, they can lower those ex post costs. If you really trust your partner's skills and you trust their honesty, you don't have to micromanage them or constantly check up on what they're doing.
Right, so everyone can kind of relax a bit and just focus on getting the work done.
Exactly. But then when it comes to the ex ante costs, those upfront costs, competence-based trust can actually increase them.
Wait, really? I would think if you trust someone's competence, it would be cheaper and easier to set up the deal.
It does seem kind of counterintuitive, but there's a good reason for it. When both sides trust each other's competence, they often feel a lot more confident taking on these bigger and more complex projects. What does that mean? More complicated contracts to cover all the bases.
Oh, so more details, more things that could potentially go wrong, and then more legal paperwork to make sure everyone is protected.
Exactly. Plus, there's that natural instinct to avoid becoming totally dependent on one partner, even if you do trust their competence. So, companies build in safeguards, like backup plans and ways to get out of the deal if they need to, and all of that adds to those upfront costs. Integrity-based trust, though, that actually reduces both types of costs.
So honesty and shared values, they just make the whole process smoother and more efficient.
Exactly. And we're not just talking about small change here. Based on the research, let's say you're working on a $100 million contract. Choosing a partner based on integrity, not just their competence, could save you almost $2 million in transaction costs.
Wow. Almost $2 million dollars just because you picked a partner that you knew you could really trust.
Yeah.
That's a pretty compelling argument for focusing on integrity. But what about those situations where you need both? Like, what if the project is super technical and you just have to have a partner with the right skills and the ethical track record? Is that even possible?
That's a great question, and it's something we can actually explore in the next part of our deep dive. We'll look at how these two types of trust work together, and if it's actually possible to find that perfect partner who excels in both areas.
I'm on the edge of my seat. Don't go anywhere, folks, because we're about to uncover even more about trust in business relationships. Okay, so we left off with this big question. What happens when you need a partner who's both super competent and has that strong ethical compass? Is it even possible? Can you really find that unicorn?
That's the thing a lot of companies get hung up on, trying to find that perfect balance.
Right.
But they miss this crucial point. Competence and integrity aren't really separate things.
Okay, wait, explain that one to me.
Well, think about what true competence really means. It's not just about having the technical skills or always hitting those deadlines.
Right.
It's also about making smart and responsible decisions. So a truly competent partner, they understand that cutting corners or acting unethically, it's going to hurt them in the long run.
Yeah.
They might get ahead in the short term, but it's going to damage their reputation and their relationships. So it's not really competence, is it?
So you're saying that integrity is actually a part of competence. Like you can't really have one without the other.
Exactly. It's kind of a more well-rounded way to think about competence.
Hmm.
Someone could be amazingly skilled at what they do, but if they're willing to compromise their ethics to get a deal done, are they really that competent in the grand scheme of things?
Right. It's short-sighted. So how can companies even tell if a potential partner has this kind of, I guess you could say, integrated competence and integrity? It's not like they put it on their website.
It's true, you're not going to find it on their website. It takes more than just looking at their credentials or listening to their sales pitch. You have to do some real digging.
Like what?
Talk to their past partners, talk to their employees, maybe even talk to their competitors.
Wow. Okay, going deep.
You need to get a real feel for their culture, their values, how they handle difficult situations.
You do diligent.
Exactly. And don't be shy about asking tough questions.
Like what kinds of questions?
Well, how do they approach these ethical dilemmas? Do they have any non-negotiables? How do they ensure that their actions align with their values? Those are the kinds of conversations that are going to give you way more information than a fancy brochure.
So it's about understanding how a company actually operates, not just what they've achieved. But let's be realistic for a second. There are probably going to be times when companies face that trade-off. They have a partner who's amazing.
Yeah.
They're super competent, but there's some red flags about their integrity.
Right.
What should they do in those situations?
But first, you got to acknowledge those concerns. Don't ignore them or just hope that they're going to magically disappear.
Yeah, don't bury your head in the sand.
Exactly. You have to have that open and honest conversation with your partner about your expectations.
Okay.
Be clear about your values, your non-negotiables, and be ready to walk away if those concerns aren't addressed.
Even if it means losing a really skilled partner.
Even then, because partnering with someone who doesn't share your values, that can cost you way more in the long run.
How so?
It can hurt your own reputation, create conflicts down the line,
Right.
and erode the trust that's absolutely essential for a good partnership.
So it's as much about protecting your own integrity as it is about choosing partners who already have it.
That's a great way to put it. Short-term gains that you get by compromising your integrity, those are always going to come back to haunt you. But what about the listener who's thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but what if I'm already in a partnership where integrity isn't really a top priority? Is it too late for them?
Yeah, plenty of companies are probably in that boat.
It's never too late to start building that culture of integrity. Even in an existing partnership, it might take some difficult conversations and some adjustments, but it's kind of like tending a garden. You have to actively cultivate those integrity seeds.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So what are those essential ingredients for growing that integrity garden in a business relationship?
Well, transparency is key. That means making open and honest communication the norm.
So no more hiding behind contracts and legal jargon.
Exactly. Encourage those regular check-ins where both sides can share updates, concerns, even those uh-oh moments,
Right.
you have to create a space where it's safe to be honest, even when it's not easy.
Right. Yeah, I can see that being a challenge, especially if that hasn't been the way they've been operating in the past.
It takes time.
What about those times when partners disagree about what's ethical? I mean, that's bound to happen, right?
Oh, for sure. And that's where a clear code of conduct can be super helpful.
Like a set of rules that everyone agrees to.
Exactly. It outlines all those ethical expectations right up front so there's less room for misunderstandings,
Yeah.
and it creates a level playing field where everyone's operating from the same principles.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what else can companies do to really make integrity a core part of their partnerships?
It's one thing to talk the talk, but you have to walk the walk.
Hmm.
You can't just talk about integrity, you have to show it in your actions. If you expect your partners to be honest and transparent, you need to hold yourself to that same standard.
So it's not just about finding the right partner. It's about being the right partner.
Precisely. Make integrity a part of your company's DNA, and it will naturally flow into your partnerships.
Hmm.
But this can be tricky, especially if there are these power imbalances, like
Right.
one partner has a lot more leverage than the other.
Yeah. How do you suggest companies approach that kind of situation?
It's a great question, and it's something that we can dive into in the final part of our deep dive. We're going to look at all the challenges and opportunities that come up when partners have different levels of power, and how to make sure integrity thrives even in those complex dynamics. So stay tuned, folks, because we're going to uncover even more about creating a culture of integrity in any business relationship.
Okay, so we've talked about how to choose partners based on integrity and how to actually build that culture of trust even in existing relationships. But what happens when you throw a power imbalance into the mix?
Ah, yes, the big elephant in the room.
Right. What if one partner is way bigger or has more leverage than the other?
Hmm.
How do you make sure that integrity is still a top priority, especially when things aren't exactly equal?
Yeah, that's a really important question because those power dynamics can make things so much more complicated.
Right.
It's easy for a company that has all the leverage to kind of dictate the terms, even if those terms maybe aren't totally aligned with their ethical principles.
So how do you prevent that from happening? I mean, how do you make sure that the smaller partner's voice is heard
Yeah.
and that their values are actually respected even when they're going up against a giant?
It really starts with acknowledging that that power imbalance is there
Okay.
and actively working to make it less of a factor.
Yeah.
The bigger partner has to be willing to listen, be open to feedback, even if it means changing their approach.
So humility, basically, and being willing to compromise even when you're the one calling the shots.
Exactly.
Mm.
It's about creating a partnership where both sides feel like they can speak up,
Yeah,
where they know their concerns are going to be taken seriously,
right.
regardless of their size or how much market share they have.
But how do you actually do that? I mean, are there specific steps that companies can take to level the playing field?
Definitely. One thing is to set up clear communication channels where both partners have equal access to information. And they're involved in the decision-making process. No more backroom deals or side conversations.
Yeah, where one partner gets left out.
Exactly. Transparency is key, even when it might feel a little uncomfortable.
Right. It's about building that trust.
And don't be afraid to bring in a neutral third party if you need to.
Okay.
Someone like a mediator or a facilitator who can help with those tough conversations and make sure everyone has a chance to be heard.
Yeah, so sometimes having that outside perspective can help smooth things over.
Exactly.
So it seems like it all boils down to creating this environment of respect and understanding, no matter who have the power.
You got it. When both partners feel valued and respected, they're way more likely to act with integrity, even when they're facing a tough decision.
And that ultimately makes the partnership stronger. It's not just about being ethical. It's about creating a partnership that actually works and lasts.
Exactly. When integrity is at the core of that relationship, you're building a foundation of trust that can handle anything.
It's been such a great conversation. As we wrap up our deep dive into trust in business relationships, is there one big takeaway you want to leave with our listeners?
Integrity, it's not just a nice to have. It's the key to building those strong, lasting, and mutually beneficial partnerships. It's about choosing the right partners, creating that culture of transparency and open communication, and tackling those power imbalances head on.
Be proactive.
And when you prioritize integrity, you're not just doing the right thing, you're setting yourself up for success.
That's fantastic advice. Integrity is the foundation of any truly successful partnership. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll be back soon with another exploration into the fascinating world of business and beyond. Until then, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep looking for those integrity gems in all your collaborations.